So hello everyone, thank you so much for having me today. I am Marie, but Marie is the French way to say it. I am the Global Employer Reputation Manager at Mars. I've been with Mars forever, 8 years, in various range of communication roles. And today, I have invited, for many reasons, one of my, right after Harry Styles, favorite UK person, Chris Woods. Chris and I have been working for a long time together, but this is the second time we get to see each other in person.
Yeah.
So thank you, Chris, for joining with me. I'll just let you introduce yourself and say a few words about Mars.
Thank you. And I'm here to translate Marie's very French accent. So just to start, anytime you hear hotel, just add a H in front of it and you'll find that's what she means to say. So my name's Chris. For those of you who already follow me on LinkedIn, we've already met Barney as well. Barney is my lovely Dachshund, and I have to say, I'm here repping him as well in every way possible. So, as Marie says, I've been working with Marie for a number of years. So I've been at Mars for 5 years, and my role is to look after recruitment marketing and I&D regionally, so covering what we call our Europe, India, Middle East and South Africa region, which is a fairly complex job title when you really go into it. Yeah, as I say, it's lovely to be on stage with Marie, because despite working together for 5 years, this is the second time we've met in person, thanks to a certain COVID.
All right, Chris, do you want to say a few words about Mars? Because I think you will create surprises in the room.
Yes. So, a lot of you will have potentially heard of our consumer brands, but I'm going to hazard a guess. And actually, just by way of hands, how many people have heard of Mars and know the breadth of Mars as an organisation? So hand up if you have. And that's why me and Marie exist. So Mars is 140,000 associates across the globe. So we're a 110-year-old business. We are still privately family-owned to this day, so unsurprisingly, we're one of the largest privately owned businesses in the world. We're headquartered in McLean in the US, and we are about a $45 billion business, give or take. Because we're privately owned, we don't actually publicly release all of our financial figures, so that figure's probably a couple of years old. We operate in over 80 countries. We have just under 400 sites, and just in a hint for what's next, we have about 2,500 veterinary clinics across the world as well. And I'm very proud to say we are also, not quite 2023, it's slightly out of date, but let's keep it up there for a while, a 2022 Glassdoor Best Workplace. And for those of you in here today, I know Flex are here. We're very proudly one of Flex's most flexible UK companies in the UK as well. So if we flick over to the next slide, this is the bit of information I think most of you will know. So Mars is split up into 4 consumer-facing segments. So we have pet care, and yeah, who knew? So we have pet care, which is brands you will all know and love. Well, maybe not love, as your pets will love them, which is Royal Canin, Pedigree, Whiskers, I Am, Caesar. We then have Mars Food, which is Dolmio, Ben's Original, Susie One, Seeds of Change. And then we have Mars Wrigley Confectionery, which is the one you'll all love. And yes, I do get a free chocolate allowance, and yes, it is on your table at the moment. I will also go to a little Sainsbury's local and get some more chocolate at lunchtime, because one of the very great joys of my job is not only do I get a chocolate allowance, I also get a corporate card, and no one ever gets to buy that much chocolate on their corporate card than me. So we have brands in there like Kind, Mars, M&M's, Snickers, Starburst, Bounty, Twix, etc. And then the slightly lesser known segment we have is Mars Edge, which is creating better nutrition through personalisation and data. So in there we have Cocovia, Gomo and FoodSpring. But handing back over to my French counterpart, how do we get our future associates to know about Mars right across the globe?
Okay, that's a good question, Chris. And this is exactly what we are trying to solve every day. So as you can see, we are a global company. We have iconic brands that everyone loves and knows. Our challenge is to make sure that talent know that we are not just a chocolate bar. So our aim is to create a global story, one story that is the same across the globe. Everyone talent, if you're based in India, Australia, UK, France, you need to understand who is Mars as an employer. And we also want to ensure global brand consistency. And by we, it's not just me and Chris, it's actually so many people, and we've just spoken with a few of you already. I feel very fortunate that our employer branding ecosystem is quite advanced. I am not the only one doing this job at Mars. We can rely on 30 plus experts based in our market, in our key markets. As you can see, we cover most of the world. Nikki is just here. She looks after UK and Ireland. So the idea is this is how we operate at Mars. I am part of the global COE, Center of Expertise. My job is to define the framework, the strategy, the brand, the EVP. Chris looks after recruitment marketing and IND in Europe and has also peers in other regions. And then we have locally in our key markets, people doing employer reputation, bringing the EVP to life, bringing the brand to life, and also adding a bit of an differentiators. If you look after like talent in the UK, they don't have the same needs as in India or in Brazil. So you need to have people based in the countries that will have this differentiation and will bring to life the EVP in a more like local way. Personally, I'm very, very fortunate to have like this community that works with us, because it's impossible to like manage brand consistency and EVP across the globe with just a team of 2 or 3. So I really, really want to thank everyone that is in the community, because it would be impossible to like do great and powerful and impactful employer branding just in a global team. So, 2 basic slides, but the job of our global team is also to define the framework, to define the key principles. We just heard about Compare the Markets. Was that the company? Sorry, Compare the Markets. And we had someone from corporate affairs. We also work a lot with corporate affairs at Mars. So when we defined last year, when we refreshed our EVP and employer brand, we defined 3 key principles. We want our employer brand to be super linked and a continuity of the corporate brand for many reasons, because we know that most of the time a talent would hear about Mars through newspaper, media coverage, media news, and then we'll be like, okay, that sounds cool, maybe this is an employer, so I will go on a career site and learn more about Mars as an employer. So we want to create this consistency and link with the corporate brand. Of course, we just heard also about the character at Compare the Markets. Character at Mars are like part of our identity. We have M&Ms as characters. So, and we have iconic brands. And we want to make sure our employer brand also highlights our brands, because we know this is the main drivers of application, or at least interest from candidates to join Mars. And last but not least, employer branding, it's about people. So we also want to make sure that our brand every time reflect like real associate. We talk about associate at Mars and not employees. So every time you will see something about Mars, you will see a real human working at Mars. It's super important for us. So we define that as a global team, and we train and empower our regional and local resources to bring that to life in their markets, while adding a bit of a differentiation. And last but not least, basic creative platforms elements, but we of course define the logo, the color, the font, the brand squares. This is again to ensure this brand consistency. The risk of being a global company is you can also lose this brand consistency and start having different local employer brands that are like a bit of a mess, and you lose the talent if your brand is not consistent across the globe.
I'm going to start predicting some of the questions we're getting in Slido at the moment. But Marie, the big question is, how do we maneuver our employer brand to have brand consistency with local differentiation?
Yeah, this is for us like the key question, and also our big focus in the global team. We would like to share with you 3 ideas of insight that we are implementing at Mars. For us, the most important is to get the balance right. So you need brand consistency, but you cannot ask Nikki in the UK or Vatsala in India to do exactly the same job and spread the word about Mars in the same way. So bring the framework, but allow room for flexibility. We will zoom in this one in a minute. Enable the experts, rely on your community. Again, you don't know how to do employer branding in Brazil or in the US, it's completely different, so rely on your experts. And last but not least, you've got the talent, so create a sense of belonging. Make sure that people feel they are part of a global community, something global, so they also get the trust and of course, allow them to do their job. If we zoom in on this first one, I like this slide because Very often I'm sitting at the brand police and I have my peers or colleagues in the market asking me for approval constantly. I'm like, guys, I'm not the brand police. So I give you the framework, I equipped you with the guidebook, very boring guidebook, but we have to have one. But we share some recommendation, advices. But at the end of the day, Nikki in the room knows how to do employer branding in the UK more than me. So you're not the brand police. Allow room for flexibility. It's the most important. We are doing a fun job. Employer branding should be fun. We work in a fun company, so allow room for flexibility, but make sure you also empower everyone. And this is the next slide before I hand over to Chris. Enable the experts. Again and again, every market or countries will have different needs and different talents. So for us, it's all about creating the tools and processes to enable your experts. At Mars, we've chosen to work with Paperfly, and Paperfly allows us to achieve that. So a while ago, and actually last year when we refreshed everything, we connected with hiring managers, recruiters, sourcers, employer reputation specialists to understand what they would need to become advocates and to become almost like recruiters, even if they're like hiring managers. So we run survey. Chris, you led an important survey. We interview many people to understand what they would need to feel a bit more empowered, to talk about their experience, to promote a job opportunity, etc., etc. And we define a set of like basic tools, but at least the brand consistency is respected. So as you can see, we created poster, job ad, stories, templates, social media carousel, etc., etc. Now I'll just hand over to Chris to show you how you can also incorporate I&D in this process.
And so I think when you're enabling the experts, one thing we wanted to look at was the fact that our brands, our consumer brands, so M&M's, Twix, etc., they all transcend markets. And so we wanted our employer brand to transcend that market as well. When we did, so I did a global survey in 2021, one of the worst things you can do, by the way. And the research we got out of that was global. So we had great research from across the world on what they needed for their employer brand. But any one of you here that's tried to do anything kind of in a market but that is going for global knows that you can't hit everything. Not everyone's going to be happy at the right times. So for us, it's all about enabling the experts. So Marie, at the tail end of last year, created this beautiful new brand that we have that is flexible so that we can have different brand squares to represent different brands that were popular in different markets. We have a brand new call to action around Your Tomorrow Starts Today, which is linked directly to our global tagline, which is Tomorrow Starts Today. But what we didn't do is tell each market how to exactly do that and how to be an employer reputation specialist in each of their markets. So Nikki, I feel like you've been called on enough, but it's not the last time. We can't tell Nikki how to do her job in the UK. It's our job, for me, regionally, to be able to build something for recruitment marketing, and Marie to be able to build a brand that works and transcends those markets like our consumer brand. Oops. And so I love this one as well, and it's around, again, enabling the experts, but offering flexibility around our brand, but while also, again, enabling the experts. So we have kind of 3 different buckets in Mars to our employer reputation strategy. So we have our global strategy, which is very nicely represented there by Marie, and her job is around building brand governance. So taking what our employer brand should be, working with our corporate affairs and our corporate brand team, and building guidelines, governance, etc. It's also around creating global campaigns. So when we're on the next slide in a moment, you'll see an example of this. But it's not about telling us what to do. It's not about acting like the brand police. And I think the fact that we're both on stage here together should hopefully prove that. Then it's about regional, so my level. And my job is to create a regional recruitment marketing or employer brand strategy. It's not to undo anything Marie's done. It's not to tell Nikki and our reputation specialists what to do. It's about creating a strategy that might work across different talent groups. So we know someone in sales might want something different from supply. So it's about taking the work Marie's done and building that into a strategy which works for different people across the globe. And then finally, Nikki, who I feel like probably should have just sat in one of these seats at this point, is there to execute within markets. So she knows best how to execute to the UK market. She knows best over France. So Marie might be able to advise slightly on that, given she also did that job at one point. But we don't know exactly what each market needs. That's down to the specialists. We're there to create consistency and flexibility across all of the work we do. And on the next slide, you'll see some examples of that. So global content, it might be about creating a referral campaign which is going to work across all of our markets. Now, even saying that, it's still about taking that and translating and transcreating that to different markets, but using a global template so we have consistency across one really important campaign. Regionally then, it's my job, and unsurprisingly there's a dashend in there, it's my job to create something which works for our markets. And even then, that's not always doable because we operate across 13 markets across Europe. But taking something, and I will caveat, we do work together. I have included our old employer brand there, just because it had a dashend in, but we do work together and communicate. But that's about taking something which might work across those markets and building a campaign which is right for the talent acquisition strategy that we have in Europe. And then finally, Nikki will create content which is relevant for her market. So it might be slightly different. Anyone in here will know, I think I was talking to someone that had different benefits and was talking about one benefit being relevant in one market but not in another. That's the same for a business like Mars. So in the UK, we have great flexibility practices. So for Nikki, it's about creating content and building partnerships with partners like Flexa that could allow us to promote that flexibility. It's not about kind of working against each other, it's working together. We are one flat hierarchy. A lot of us are at the same level in our roles. It's about working together to create an overall employer brand strategy that works for us all. And so it's all about creating a great sense of belonging. I will also say Marie made this slide, so I didn't just say hi to myself. We split the slides to make, and she made this one, added hi Chris on there, and then made me present it so I look like a narcissist in front of you all. And so this is our great diverse community. When you look at that, there are, apart from the gender diversity as being the only male on there, but hey, no two males, there's great diversity on there. And with that comes great thought diversity and differentiation in what we might do and expertise and skill sets. So for us, it's about leveraging that community. It's not all about this is your lane, stay in that lane and do what you're told. It's about working with different people across the community. So saying, this might be a skill set of mine. A prime example being Marie and I working together on the EVP survey we mentioned to create something which leverages our skill sets so each other can work on things like Marie building on awesome external brands we have. It's about understanding what our strengths are and working with each other to build on those strengths and create something which works for Mars in the long term. We all have the same goal at the end of the day, which is to make Mars as attractive an employer as possible and help people see what we see about working at Mars as well. And so I think the last slide from me, just as a wrap up, hopefully this has helped, but just as a really quick win for you all, get the balance right. It's how can you create brand consistency with local differentiators? It's not about governance, it's not about policing it. There has to be an element of that because you do want your brand to work, but it's about what can work whilst making sure it also transcends different markets, or whether that be markets geographically, whether that be markets with brands or different business units. There's different ways to look at it. Enable the experts. This one I love. I would be infinitesimally different at my job if it wasn't for the amazing community of experts we have who are constantly helping me, who enable me to do projects that I would probably sit there and stare and maybe repeatedly beat my head against my laptop screen. And then also knowing you've got the talent, so leverage that expertise and really enable people. So hopefully there's something that's kind of sat and resonated with you today. Marie and I are both here, Nikki's here. I'm always happy to talk to you. And as I say, enjoy the free chocolate. But just one final parting message from Marie, which is always important.
Just be kind. No, we couldn't wrap up this pitch without a bit of a brand focus. So just be kind also to yourself. We know recruiting is not the easiest job, but it should be a fun one. I mean, we get to meet also with great talent. Doing employer branding, it's for me the funniest job because also I love my company, and I'm sure you also really love working in your businesses, in your companies. So be kind to yourself, prioritize everything, be kind with people, and just keep having fun when you work, and enjoy the chocolate on the table.
And we'll put some more chocolate out after lunch, because you're not you when you're hungry. Just now you're all going to go out and buy Snickers and I'm job done.
So, do we have time for Q&A?
We do have time for Q&A. Big round of applause first, though.